Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, the series opens near a village that notices a rift appearing from beneath the ground, uncovering an old man who claims to be the king of a former kingdom. The old man utters that his kingdom had been held captive by an evil magician, offering to hand over the kingdom to whoever defeats said magician, suddenly vanishing into dust. Moving forward in time, we follow several adventurers pitted against a mighty dragon, all working together to pick away at the dragon. But the adventurers begin dropping one by one, having lost valuable time and resources in the previous days. Laos Tudin, the leader, and our MC, is seen lost in thought, planning their next course of action after defeating the dragon. But suddenly Fallon, Laos's younger sister, shoves Laos away, helplessly watching as Fallon is snatched up by the red dragon. Scanning the area, Laos realizes his party has completely been wiped, watching as Fallon casts one final spell out of desperation, sending Laos and the entirety of the party back to the surface. Waking up in a field, Laos is called by Marcel Donato, notified that everyone had escaped the dungeon, all but Fallon herself. Laos is horrified to realize that her magic couldn't rescue her from the jaws of the dragon, asking for everyone to prepare to re-enter the dungeon, but Marcel reveals that everyone's gear had been lost when they were transported out of the dungeon. Chilchuck also joins the conversation, revealing that two of their party members have resigned, having been scouted by other parties. Laos knows exploring dungeons costs money to hire companions, buying equipment, and purchasing food, wondering if they could sell their current items to cover their expenses, but Chilchuck says they're nowhere near their goal. Laos knows that Fallon will get digested the longer they wait, saddened to hear revival spells won't work in every case, but first they should refuel with some food. Heading through town, Marcel and Chilchuck both begin listing off foods they crave, but Laos reminds them that they still need to save Fallon, suggesting that he solo the dungeon whilst the others sell their gear. Laos blames himself for not being more prepared, not wanting to put his friends in harm's way. But Marcel reminds Laos he needs her magic, and Chilchuck states they'll need his skills to open doors and disable traps. With Laos fired up, he declares that they'll quench their hunger by slaying the monsters within the dungeon, reminding everyone that there is an entire ecosystem of monsters in the dungeon, and this will surely give them chances to hunt for their own meals. As Marcel and Chilchuck think back on their monster encounters, they question if they'll survive after eating such creatures, telling Laos that criminals that have been banished are the ones that feed on monsters. But as Laos and Marcel continue to bicker, they suddenly spot a newbie party fleeing from a monster. With a single swing, Marcel knocks out the mushroom monster chasing them, watching as Laos appoint the mushroom monster as their first meal, learning from a book that mushrooms are a good beginner meal. Needing more ingredients, Laos rushes deeper into the dungeon, cutting over to a section of the dungeon that once was a cemetery for villagers to sleep, but now it has been turned into a marketplace for adventurers. Apparently, it was only 6 years ago when the dungeon emerged, and no one has any idea how it came to be, with people believing it to be forbidden magic that created the dungeon or monsters from another world flooding into their current one. Spotting a hole in the dungeon, Laos sticks his wrapped-up sword into the hole, luring out a scorpion only to put it down like a crayfish. Chilchuck calls out Laos for secretly wanting to eat monsters, but Laos adds he was always fascinated by how monsters looked and how they function, but it doesn't detract from his mission to save his sister. Retrieving some water from a nearby fountain, the gang set up in the middle of the room, prompting Laos to cut into the mushroom monster, amazed to learn that cutting the creature from the side is tougher than vertical cuts. Dicing up the mushroom, Laos tosses the mushroom cubes along with the scorpion into a boiling pot, reassuring Marcel that the scorpion's venom is safe to consume. Tasting the meal, Laos immediately throws up, spotting Senshi calling out to them. Taking over, Senshi begins dissecting the scorpion, removing its pincer, head and legs only to extract the scorpion's organs. As for the mushroom, Senshi removes the bottom half of the mushroom, keeping its top and legs, only to toss everything into a bigger pot he prepared himself. Seeing as the meal is missing things, Senshi heads over to sever some roots and herbs. But Marcel is very opposed to eating plants grown from a location that once belonged to a cemetery. With Marcel demanding to know who Senshi is, a strange ooze pours onto Marcel, revealed to be a slime that restricts Marcel from casting her spells with her voice. Luckily, Senshi frees Marcel with a single stab to the slime, surprising Leos as it would normally take them longer. Senshi reveals the structure of a slime is quite simplistic, as slimes choose their targets based on the prey's breathing pattern, meaning shouting would naturally draw its attention. Senshi begins prepping the slime with some citric juice, sandwiching it between a net, and declaring he'll let it dry into a delicacy in the coming weeks. Taking out one he prepared earlier, Senshi mentions how he studied the dungeon for over 10 years, tasting and adding the final touches to his delicious hot pot. As Senshi serves the boys a bowl, Marcel patiently watches the boys enjoying the dish, giving in as she demands to taste the dish as well. Surprisingly, the slime combined with the roots and herbs Senshi added completes the meal, all dusting off their bowls as Senshi introduces himself as a dwarf researcher. Upon hearing that Leos and his party are heading deep into the dungeon to rescue his sister from a red dragon, Senshi laments that dragons normally spend their days sleeping and slowly digesting their food, excitedly asking if he can join Leos's party, having always wanted to cook up a red dragon. Although the gang are surprised by Senshi's enthusiasm, they accept Senshi as a member, all leaving the first basement floor only to head into the second basement floor filled with massive trees and greenery. Apparently, scholars believe that the second basement floor belongs to the upper region of a golden castle, making Chilchik question how the massive trees remain underground, but Leos brushes it off as another feature of the cursed dungeon. Seeing Marcel trip, Leos reasons they should set up camp and rest for the day, reminded of the time when they spent the night in a hollow tree, all agreeing to hunt down monsters for their dinner. Seeing Marcel annoyed, Leos promises to make a meal that suits her taste, but Marcel freaks out hearing that only rats, bats, goblins, and living armor are the most popular monsters nearby. Luckily, Senshi reassures everyone that fruits also grow nearby, guiding everyone to some man-eating plants with fruits growing from them, annoying Marcel. Leos reminds Marcel that man-eating plants are an umbrella term, showing off the Baracelia flower lure in a mouse with its mucus trap, slaying it only to use it as compost. Leos states that all plants and vegetables are grown from dead remains and animal feces, reassured by Chilchuk that such man-eating plants at their level would never be able to harm humans. Seeing as it'll be hard for the gang to sneak in and retrieve the fruits growing off the man-eating plants, Marcel begins channeling a spell, preparing to fire it at the man-eating plants, but is suddenly halted by Senshi. At that moment, the plant opens its petals, sending several vines to ensnare Marcel, only for Senshi to remind Marcel to take only what they need, as Marcel's spell would have harmed the forest unnecessarily. As the vines begin wrapping tighter around Marcel, the gang spot the plant spitting out an existing corpse, scaring Marcel when she learns man-eating plants normally plant seeds in its victims. Seeing no other choice, Leos aims for the plant's roots, freeing Marcel. Helping Marcel up, Leos gets excited, wanting to know how Marcel felt being tied up by the plant, but Marcel glares at Leos, weirded out by his question. Picking some fruits and vegetables, the gang head into a hollow tree, starting off by boiling the plucked vegetables only to delicately remove their seeds. Next, Senshi coats a pan with the vegetable skin, making use of some fruit, excess slime, and scorpion remains to create a mixture that can be poured into the pan. Serving up a fruit tart, all once again amazed by the dish Senshi whipped up, but they all wonder what they should do with the corpse. With Marcel instructed to not revive it, they string it up for others to take note of it, heading off for the night. With Marcel enduring a nightmare as she sleeps, Leos thinks about the journey ahead, noting that eating food is a luxury only to those who survive. Following a younger Marcel, she greets her mother, who serves her some of her favorite dishes. But upon realizing they're all made from dungeon monsters, Marcel awakens, realizing it was a nightmare. Smelling something nearby, Marcel gets jealous seeing another party eating pork with bread, but Senshi points out beginner adventures prioritize eating breads, dried meats, and wine, but Senshi says adventurers need fats to help function. Seeing as Marcel herself is craving fatty foods, the gang agree to seek out eggs today, running into a creature with the body of a chicken, tale of a snake and venomous fangs and claws, widely known as the Basilisk King of Snakes. As Leos fantasizes about how a basilisk will taste, the gang search around for the basilisk's nest, uncovering some freshly laid eggs, surprising Marcel as they're quite soft and narrow. Suddenly, hearing the cry of the basilisk, Leos orders everyone to hide, watching as the party they saw from earlier also sneaking into the nest, but had brought the basilisk with them. As the creature tears through the beginners, it locks onto Marcel, who runs for her life, forcing Leos to intervene with a terrifying cry, purposely making himself look big and intimidating to halt the creature. With Senshi sneaking up from behind, the basilisk sends its snake head to deal with Senshi, whilst Leos occupies the chicken head, temporarily confusing the creature and ultimately allowing Senshi and Leos to slay the basilisk. Seeing one of the other party members poisoned, the gang agreed to make use of the antidote in their next meal, all rushing to skin the creature. Covering the creature with spices and stuffing it with vegetables, Senshi roasts the chicken's body, unveiling a nicely plump chicken roast. With the poison adventure fed some of the antidote-infused chicken, they all dust off the chicken. Sitting down to rest, the rookie adventurers mention how they've only started adventuring 3 months ago and have been wiped out in the same place countless times, asking Leos how they can improve, but Senshi cries that the rookies should focus on their diet, their sleep, and their workout routines. With the rookies inspired, they depart, allowing Leos and his party to descend further, worried that they won't reach the 3rd floor today. Leos says he heard the red dragon awakens every month to hunt, aiming to reach it before it awakens with an empty stomach, scaring Marcel as she falls on her butt. Seeing as Marcel needs to rest, Leos says they should choose a different path to avoid the roaming bats, prompting Marcel to offer to use her magic to clear a path. But Leos says Chilchuck can handle most of the traps they'll encounter. Needing more food before they continue, Senshi points out some mandrakes they can harvest, allowing Marcel to take charge as mandrakes are fundamental in magic and medicine. Since mandrakes will let out a loud noise when pulled from the earth, Marcel suggests they get a dog to unearth them, but realizes they have no access to such a creature. Leos suggests they use a long string to avoid hearing the mandrake's cries, but seeing everyone so conflicted, Senshi tugs on a mandrake, severing its head before its voice can be heard. Off to the side, Marcel feels pathetic since no one believes in her, choosing to prove that her method works as she opts to use a bat instead of a dog to unearth the mandrakes. Tying a long rope to a mandrake, Marcel dangles a loop in front of a bat's nest only to fire a spell to awaken the bats from their nest. As a swarm exits the nest, one gets caught by the rope, but even with the mandrake unearthed, the bat flies free, diving towards Marcel's location. With Leos and Chilchuck checking on Marcel, they notice Marcel is in complete shock, asking why Marcel did something so dangerous. Upon hearing Marcel didn't want to be a burden, Leos reminds Marcel that her magic is important in later levels, so he only wanted her to conserve her strength, asking Marcel to rely on others and not push herself. As Marcel snaps out of her daze, the gang are amazed by their food haul, watching as Senshi mixes ingredients from the basilisk, mandrakes, and bat, crafting a special omelet for the gang. Finally heading down some stairs, Chilchuck asks to borrow Leos's sword, smacking it against a wall only to reveal a hidden passage. Senshi is shocked to see Chilchuck so serious, all heading through the secret passage, but Chilchuck suddenly orders everyone to freeze, allowing Chilchuck to personally scout the area before them first. Having cleared up a path for everyone to follow, Senshi accidentally steps on a trap, freaking out Chilchuck as he orders Senshi to listen to him. Rebelling, Senshi triggers several more traps, getting screamed at by Chilchuck, who states fire traps will combust near oil traps. But hearing that there is oil nearby, Senshi says they'll have deep-fried food for their next meal. With Senshi agreeing to listen to Chilchuck agrees to lead Senshi to their oil source, all heading towards the treasure vault where Senshi spots a chest with an oil trap. As Chilchuck works his magic, he disarms the chest, wondering how he'll get the steaming hot oil out, but is asked by Senshi to let the oil rip into his pan. Letting the oil loose, Senshi catches the oil in his pan, evaluating the oil's temperature to be 180 degrees with his finger, only to ask Chilchuk to make use of the previous traps to help prepare their next meal. With Senshi prepping the meat and the batter, Senshi hands over the items to Chilchuk to cook over the fire trap, resulting in a nicely battered bat meat. As the gang sit down to enjoy the meal, Senshi admits that Chilchuk truly is a trap expert, convincing Chilchuk to teach Senshi some of his tricks in exchange for teaching him how to cook.